What's up guys, Regis here. I just wanted to make a quick video about a build that I used to get from Diamond to Master Tier on NA very quickly on Yasuo, and I think this build, nobody knows about it yet, but I think it's really broken and I'm expecting it to be patched pretty soon, so abuse this while you can. The build is Wit's End into Frozen Mallet. And the reason this build is so good is because Yasuo can use Wit's End pretty much unlike any other champion at the moment, simply because he can go Wit's End into tanky items and still be very viable. And champions like Kale and Kog'Maw don't really go tank items, so they don't really use the MR as well as Yasuo does. And currently Wit's End is the biggest power spike Yasuo can get from a mid lane item, so it's very strong versus lanes like Echo, Okawari, any sort of AP lane. This build absolutely destroys them. Here's the match history again. I think I showed it in the intro as well. We can click through a few of these games. I think this game was versus an Okawari. But yeah, once you get Wit's End and you start building up a mallet, just the first component of the mallet, it absolutely destroys Okawari. There's like nothing she can do, and this has historically been a rough lane for Yasuo. So this build is very different because it turns a lot of hard matchups into fairly easy ones if you play it correctly. This one versus an Echo, I think, yeah. But yeah, this build is super good against any sort of AP mid lane. And even AP top lanes like AP tanks, Maokai, Malphite, this build is really strong against. I think this one was another Echo game. But yeah, let's go over the items really quick. So why is Wit's End such a good item on Yasuo? Negatron is probably a big part of that because this item is very good early on. Like a lot of mid lanes will get Negatron and build an Abyssal. Like that's a pretty popular build. So as a starting item for Yasuo, this is actually really broken just because it makes him so much harder to kill and gank, and that's one of the biggest weaknesses of Yasuo, is getting ganked early on and falling behind. That's the easiest way to lose the game as Yasuo, and as long as you stay in the game to like mid and late game, you're gonna be a lot better off. So it's very worth it to get a Negatron instead of like attack speed right away. But I would say that's the biggest reason this build is really strong, is because Negatron is a ridiculously broken first item. But after you get that, you build into your recurve, and once you finish the item, the power spike is even bigger than the Shiv power spike that you used to get before Shiv was nerfed. Simply because of how much damage you start to output as the item is completed, because you do 40 on hit and that applies to your Q as well, and you stack up the 25 MR extremely quickly, and when it's completely stacked, that's negative 25 MR for the opponent as well, which is really broken because Yasuo does a lot of magic damage with his E. Most Yasuo players will max E, so when you stack up the negative MR and hit them with the charge of E afterwards, it actually chunks their health very hard. Especially if you're top lane against some sort of AP tank, they're gonna build armor versus Yasuo because that's what everybody does, and they're gonna have like 40 MR, and when you take off 25 from that and hit them with magic damage, 40 on hit magic damage is actually really high. That's, I think, better than a Devourer at the start, like the old Devourer. So you actually shred through tanks extremely fast with this build. But as a first item, yeah, really broken on Yasuo. Just take my word for it, try it out. I think it's very broken right now. And now let's move on to the second item, Mallet, and why it's so good with Wit's End. The 650 health is a lot. I think it's the most out of most of the health items, and the reason that it's so good with Wit's End is because Wit's End gives you 65 MRs stacked up, and when you couple that with the massive health you get from Mallet, it makes you extremely tanky to the point where you can ignore AP damage almost as a whole mid game, because both these items are fairly cost efficient. Like Wit's End is only 2500 gold, and then Mallet is pretty cheap as well for the stats that it gives. So once you have these two items, which you'll have fairly early on compared to like everybody else's item builds, you can actually just ignore AP damage and run at their ADC. So you just run straight at the ADC and destroy him, and you won't die from magic damage just because you're so tanky. So as long as you eliminate physical damage, which is the ADC, you're gonna destroy team fights. And that's the whole strategy behind this build, is you get these two items and you run at their ADC and make sure that guy dies first, or is like taken out of the fight. Because if you block all of their ADC's damage, then you're basically invulnerable with this build. But yeah, let's watch a short clip, I guess, of the build in action. This is against a Echo top. He's going the Triforce build that's really popular right now. And the thing about the Wits End build is you get Wits End way earlier than they'll get their Triforce, unless you fall really behind. So the spike that you get, I mean, I think he has a Phage at this point in the game, is really big. Just because you have a completed item like 12 minutes into the game, when they're only just like finishing up half their Triforce. So let's just watch the clip. So watch how his HP just burns down because of the magic damage. And look, if you look at his MR, it's actually at 15 right now because of the minus MR. So every hit does so much damage and your E does so much damage. But yeah, that's basically why this item is so broken right now, because nobody builds MR versus Yasuo early on. And nobody expects the massive amount of magic damage you get from it. So as a power spike, it's probably one of the biggest power spikes Yasuo has gotten in a long time. And the reason this has only come up recently is because Wits End got buffed a lot. It got made a lot more cost efficient because Riot made it way cheaper since nobody ever bought the item. But people still didn't buy it just because there were no champions that could use it very well. But it turns out Yasuo can actually use it probably the best out of anybody early on. So as a first item on Yasuo, it's sleeper broken to the max. So yeah, guys, give it a go. Let me know what you think. I stream, so you come by my Twitch and say hi, let me know. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this video and hope you guys climb ranked quickly with this build, because I did, and I just wanted to share with you guys. But yeah, thanks for watching.